Do you remember life before cell phones, before cellular service? I do. I remember, having to have the rotary dial phone, and you had to do the thing and then wait for it to go back to zero, and then do the thing and wait for it to go back to zero. Like, it took forever to make a phone call. And then, we evolved to little touch-tone phones. I think that's what it's called, where you just push in the button. And then we evolved to cell phones, right? And that's great, except for as we evolved to cell phones, a lot of people got rid of their landlines. They're like, well, I don't need a touch tone or a rotary phone anymore. I've got this handy dandy little device that stays in my pocket or in my purse or whatever else and goes with me wherever I go. All I need is cell phone service. And that sounds good until your cell phone service goes into the crapper, like happened with AT&T. So I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Some of you probably have AT&T. I have AT&T. My whole family has AT&T. Their wireless service has been shoddy at best for the last couple of days. They've had nationwide outages, like sporadically throughout the entire country. And then T-Mobile and Verizon were saying they did too. Some customers were, but T-Mobile and Verizon are like, no, we're good, boo-boo. It wasn't us. You were trying to reach people on AT&T networks and you weren't able to get through. Therefore, it seemed like your T-Mobile or Verizon was out. When really, in actuality, according to them, they weren't. It's only AT&T that's affected. And so I realized this was happening when I tried to text my mother, and it kept giving me like a little clock symbol where it was like, it looked like the watch from the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, like a little pocket watch. It wasn't delivering anything. And I was like, well, that's weird. So then I tried to text my kid, same thing. And then I texted somebody on Verizon and it went through perfectly fine, which is how I knew Verizon wasn't full of crap and it was an AT&T thing, because my whole family is on AT&T. The ones in Georgia just as affected as here in Florida. And the reason this is a big deal, in my personal opinion, is because, like I said, so many people have gotten rid of landlines. They rely solely on their cell phone devices lately. And a lot of cell phone devices now, or your cellular and Wi-Fi packages, if you will, no longer need a landline for your home security. They don't need a landline for the fire department. There are alarms that go off. They use cellular devices for that too. You don't need a landline for 911. They travel over cellular whatever. So there being issues with AT&T is a huge deal. I found this article. This is on CNN, which, not everybody loves CNN, but this article was worth reading. They were talking about the fact that so many places throughout the United States have been affected by this. And AT&T, of course, says, it's not a hacking thing. It's not malware. It's nothing like that. We haven't been hacked, which is interesting, seeing as how the whole Beijing trying to hack everything issue just got exposed yesterday. We'll talk about that some other time if you want. But according to this, AT&T says they have no official reason for the outage. No official reason for the outage. The issue appears to be related to how cellular services hand off calls from one network to the next, which is known as peering. This is according to an industry source who spoke on the condition of anonymity, which is a very hard word for me to say. There is no indication that Thursday's outage was a result of a cyber attack or other malicious activity. And then it says here, local governments reported outages. So the first time I saw it, it didn't affect me, but the first time I saw it was in Atlanta. They were saying that 911, people calling 911 from their cell phones were not able to get through. And they were having to call a 404, like a landline number, but you then had to call from a landline to a 404 landline number in Atlanta because 911 was not working. And that's happened in a lot of places around the country in the last 24, 48 hours where 911 services are down because it relies on cellular data as opposed to a landline, right? So according to this here, these different local governments, I thought was interesting what happened. San Francisco's Department of Emergency Management said in a statement on X, formerly known as Twitter, because that's where everybody goes these days. Nobody uses Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp or, community posts on YouTube. Most of the stuff that you're going to find is going to be on X, interestingly enough. They said Thursday morning its 911 center remained operational, but many AT&T customers were unable to reach the emergency line because of the outage. It suggested people call from a landline or find someone with a rival's service to dial 911. Because again, you're in a car accident. The first thing you're thinking is, oh, I need to go find a landline to make a phone call. No, you pay a monthly amount. You pay exorbitant prices for cell phones these days. Apple iPhones are stupid. They cost as much as somebody's mortgage. Same thing with the, Samsung, their Galaxy these. They cost as much as a mortgage a lot of these times. And so you pay this money for these phones, you're paying this exorbitant fee every month for cell phone service. And then when you actually need your cell phone, they're like, oh, sorry, it's not going to work like that. You need to find another way for it to work or use somebody else's. That's kind of a big deal in my opinion. That's money wasted. And they're not going to give people any kind of reimbursement for the time their phones were down. It says, we are aware of an issue impacting AT&T wireless customers from making and receiving any phone calls, including to 911. This is according to the San Francisco 911 department. We are actively engaged in monitoring this. A fire department in Upper Arlington, Ohio said the AT&T outage was affecting its fire alarms. Y'all, that's a huge deal. St. Joseph County, Michigan advised residents to use Wi-Fi to place 911 calls if they can't reach 911 on AT&T's network. So here in Florida, we have AT&T cell phone service, but our Wi-Fi is through Cox Mobile, COX Mobile. I have to spell it every time so it doesn't sound like I'm saying something nasty. Through COX, I think it's called mobile, I don't know. But that's what our internet is through. So this morning, I could not get in touch with my mom. So I jumped on Facebook Messenger because I knew she would be at home with Wi-Fi service. So I sent her a message on Facebook Messenger. And I'm like, hey, your cell phone's down. I don't know if you've noticed it yet this morning or whatever else, but my messages to you are not going through. And she's like, I haven't noticed because I'm on Wi-Fi. So the apps that I would normally use are still working. But then she tried to text also and doesn't work. So a lot of people with Wi-Fi may not realize at the time that their phone doesn't work until they leave the house. Because the kid and I, my daughter and I, we're able to messenger back and forth at home. But the second we got in the car to go to school, both of our phones, nothing worked. You couldn't get any kind of service. At first, I thought maybe it was only text messages and phone calls that were not working through AT&T. I did not think it was like an entire service thing. For some reason, I thought it was only connecting calls because that's what they were kind of talking about in the beginning. But no apps worked whatsoever. You couldn't get music. You couldn't pull up your email. You couldn't pull up anything. You could pull up an SOS service so you can make 911 phone calls if necessary because you're supposed to work whether you have service or not. But when you have AT&T telling people to use a competitor's phone to call, maybe even their SOS 911 service wasn't working. But anyway, Cobb County, Georgia said its 911 operations remain unaffected by the outage, but noted that customers may want to find alternate methods of reaching emergency services. Cable County in West Virginia said customers that couldn't reach 911 could text to 911 as a last resort. But again, if your phone call isn't going through, your text messages aren't going to work either. New York, because they stay in the headlines lately, New York Police Department officials told CNN they were not able to make calls or utilize emails on AT&T phones Thursday morning unless they were connected to Wi-Fi. The Massachusetts State Police warned people not to test their phone service by placing 911 calls because a lot of people, when they can't get through anything, they'll test, and that's the easiest way to test. That's also the worst way to test because you are then clouding or clogging up 911 lines for people who might have an actual emergency. It says here, many 911 centers in the state are getting flooded with calls from people trying to see if 911 works from their cell phone. Please do not do this. You don't need to know if it works until you actually need it. So don't do that because you're making it hard for people who actually need the service to get through. An AT&T spokesman said the company's FirstNet network has remained operational. FirstNet provides coverage for first responders and is advertised as a more robust network than the AT&T commercial network. It uses a mix of its own infrastructure plus AT&T's broader network. Its customers includes police and fire departments, as well as first responders during natural disasters. And again, Verizon and T-Mobile say they're unaffected. But what I realized from this is how incredibly reliant in such a short time people have become on cell phones. And I was thinking about it earlier. There are plenty of people out there who they have this much money to work with on a monthly basis, right? And so with this much money, you can't afford a landline and home internet and a cell phone. So a lot of people have foregone the landline and the internet in order to have the cell phone. Because in theory, your cell phone has everything. It's got the internet, it's got your ability to make phone calls, it's got your text messaging. You don't need anything else, right? So for people who relied solely on a cell phone, especially an AT&T one, they're literally the ones up a creek more than anybody else. A lot of the what are the words I'm looking for? Alarm systems that are on a lot of different businesses, they are attached to cell devices. So people who had systems set up on their businesses that run through AT&T, the alarms weren't going to work. So how many people got burglarized, or how many? It's just a random thought I had. Like, I wonder if anybody took advantage, if you will, of the fact that AT&T was down, the fact that 911 was down in a lot of places, and took advantage of it and was like, oh, this is a really good time to go break into something and steal some stuff, because some people just suck like that. But I was thinking about earlier, the days of carrier pigeons are gone. The days of writing handwritten letters and mailing them off and being patient while they got delivered and being patient while somebody wrote a letter and delivered it back, those days are gone. We need instant gratification these days. That's why cell phones are such a huge deal, because you need to be able to, while sitting at a red light, send a text and get an immediate response from your spouse or your friend or your whatever else on, do you need anything from the grocery store? What time do you want to meet? What are you wearing tonight? Like, just random stuff, because instant gratification has been what drives our not even our country, but our world. Instant gratification drives the world. That's why when the internet goes down or your cell phone goes down, people lose their ever-loving minds. Not because they're worried about needing to call 911, but because they can't check Facebook, they can't check Instagram, they can't jump on Twitter and see or X and see what's happening. They can't upload to YouTube. You know what I'm saying? The instant gratification is kind of a big deal. But heaven forbid AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon Cellular all go down. How many people will still have the ability to make a phone call? How many people still have landlines? I don't have a landline. I haven't had a landline in probably 10 years, when we were told, hey, you don't need a landline for your home alarm anymore. And, you know, cell phones are where everything happens, so you don't really need a landline for anything. Nobody really calls people anymore anyway. I mean, when's the last time you went to a store and saw a bunch of regular landline phones lined up for sale that you could buy? I don't think I've ever even seen one at Walmart or Target to buy a landline. Like, it used to be all the rage. When I was in high school, I was so excited to get my own phone in my room. I got that clear see-through one. I had the McDonald's hamburger looking one, like all kinds of random stupid phones. And now kids these days are never going to know how much fun it was trying to hold a phone call on a hamburger, or trying to, you know, hoping somebody would call you so your see-through phone would light up all crazy with like all the disco looking colors. Nobody knows what that's like anymore. That's it. I saw the issue and I was like, this is going to affect a lot of people, and I wonder how many people don't realize that that's happening, especially, again, if you rely on your cell phone for all of your internet. You don't have a Wi-Fi or anything at home. There's no way for you to check to see what's going on. You're literally in the dark. And for people who are also homebound or whatever like that, they literally have no clue what's going on, unless, of course, they also have TV and they're mentioning it on the regular news or whatnot. It was just interesting that was something that's going on right now. And AT&T, this is like the second or third time in a couple weeks. It's not the first time it's happened. So my brain, of course, goes, T-Mobile and Verizon have worked together to take out AT&T. Just like, you know, Capital One we talked about yesterday. Capital One bought out Discover. They're trying to slowly whittle it down so you have less options to choose from, so they can be the king of it all and charge whatever they want, because what other options do you have? I'm not saying that's what's going on, but nothing surprises me anymore if that was the case. So anyway, hopefully everybody gets service back. If you do have AT&T, hopefully your service comes back. If you're on Verizon or T-Mobile, good job. You picked the right carrier there, I guess. I guess that's it. I'm curious if you guys have noticed any issues with trying to get in touch with people or anything like that. If you have, leave it in the comments below. I wish we could get back to a time where we weren't so reliant on instant gratification, on cell phones like that. But the world has made it so that without a cell phone, you are literally left high and dry. You're expected to pay all your bills through your phones. You're expected to, you know, everything. If you want to go to Best Buy, you have to scan a QR code. There's restaurants you have to scan with your phone to see the menu. Like, we have become so incredibly reliant on cell phones. It's a little scary if you sit there and think about it, because at any point in time, the network could go down and we're all just in the dark with no clue what's happening. So that's that. Okay, Squirrel Tribe, I love you. Have a great rest of your day. I'll probably see you later. Okay, bye.